Please score. Opposing counsel. Members of the jury. They laid a trap. They set it. They created it. They camouflaged it. And when it finally snapped, they didn't get anything. They laid a trap, and they didn't get anything. They didn't get what they thought that they were going to get. And so they regrouped. When the trap is empty, what else can we get? And there's a few things that Ms. McCraw said in her opening statement that I want you to pay close attention to. The first thing is that it started with them. The people prosecuting her right now. It started with them. They initiated the investigation. She told you that. They work for the Bexar County District Attorney's Office. That's a political position. Nico told you he used to be a district attorney. Constable's office is also a political position. The Bexar County Sheriff's Office is also a political position at the top. And then people like Dawn, people like Oscar, people like I used to be. We all work for the elected. But it's very important to understand and to note that it started with them. And you heard Ms. McCraw say, called Ranger Freeman Brad. Oh, it's Brad. I've worked with him for years. Dawn and Brad set a trap. Dawn and Brad worked on that trap, camouflaged the trap to get Michelle. That was what they were trying to do. But when the trap sprang, they didn't get anything. And that's why we're here, not on she stole money, not on she mismanaged money, not on anything that they were trying to get. We're here on a couple of documents. We're here on these handwritten cash logs. And you read about it, she told you about the subpoenas and some of the stuff, and I want to talk about it. But first, it's really important to understand the timeline. And that's what she ended with, and I want to start with it. Easter Sunday. Now, she presented you a set of facts. But that set of facts is not what's going to be seen by the evidence. Because she was correct. If you have more than 50 people, or if those people are drinking alcohol at Rodriguez Park, you have to have security. So first, Rodriguez Park is located in Bexar County Precinct 2. And at the time, Michelle was the constable from Precinct 2. So the evidence will show, and there won't be any dispute from any witness, that Michelle, as constable, was responsible for security at Rodriguez Park. If there were more than 50 people at the pavilion, or alcohol was being consumed. Now, one of the ways that she presented that Easter Park thing, this was the whole problem. That's how these people presented it too. They did a story on it when Mr. Reyes got so mad about it that it caused them to start an investigation based on a misunderstanding. And as you will see from the evidence, it was Mr. Reyes himself who had made the mistake. So, going back to what we know. If you rent a pavilion at Easter or any other time at Rodriguez Park, you have to pay security if you have more than 50 people, or if people were consuming alcohol. What that tells you is you don't have to pay security at all if you have less than 50 people, or if you don't consume alcohol. I mean, that's it. Not just you consuming, but anybody in your party. And we know why. And everybody here can understand why. Why Bexar County itself made that a rule. Because when you get a lot of people together, if the crowd is big, that could be a security problem for everybody else in the park. It could be. Now, Mr. Reyes, there's no evidence that they were rowdy. But as we know, and as we've seen, and as we've watched the news, we know that it can get rowdy at these parks. So if you got a lot of people, you're going to need an officer. Somebody there that's watching, making sure everything's okay. But the other thing is, if you're drinking alcohol, even if you don't have a lot of people, at that pavilion, the rules are, if you're drinking, you need an officer. Because we also know that when alcohol gets introduced to a party, it can get out of hand. So all of this is just a safety concern, and so that's why there's these rules. She did not make these rules. She was responsible for enforcing the rules, and that's what the evidence is going to prove. So, on Easter Sunday, the way Ms. McCraw presented it is, it's like she came up with her family and said, "You don't got a reservation, get out of here." What actually happened is a person named Henry Guerrero, who was responsible at the parks, called the constable's office and said, the Easter Sunday people for Pavilion 1 canceled. And it will be proven. We have documentary evidence where they're going, yeah, Henry made a mistake. Henry made a mistake. He called her and said, it's canceled. The people for Easter canceled it. It turned out that the people the day before had canceled, and he made a mistake. And his supervisors talked to each other and said, yeah, Henry screwed that one up. Now, when Michelle hears that, she says, well, I'll take my family to the pavilion. She went and got a money order, just like every other citizen, for the rental of the pavilion. And she went and brought it. When she got to the park, Mr. Reyes was there. She's got her family, he's got his, and she goes, look, they told me you canceled. And he said, no, I didn't cancel. Now, in Mr. Reyes' mind, and I'm not saying that he's a bad guy, but in his mind, all of a sudden, he started to go, wait, what's going on here? And he started to look at her just like any one of us would do. If we're there with our family and we'd had plans, and somebody comes up and tells us we don't have a reservation, our instinct is to go, what is this person doing? Who is this person to come here and tell me that? Mr. Reyes didn't know that Henry made a mistake. He didn't know that. And so they called and they go, no, actually he does have the rental. So what did she do? She said, okay. She took her family to a different part of the park. She is there with her family. Now, while she is there, she's looking over and she sees that they're drinking. The party there is drinking. Now, because she is the person responsible for security, and she knows she's got no deputies out there. There's nobody out there. So she's going, wait, what's going on? Now, what Dawn told you, and what's important to understand is that Susan Tristan is the person who worked at Michelle's office who was responsible for this. And Michelle believed in Susan. She believed that Susan had made a call to Mr. Reyes. Why wouldn't she? She believed that Susan had talked to Mr. Reyes beforehand. She believed that Mr. Reyes must have told her that he did not have alcohol or would not have alcohol at the party, and that's why Susan didn't make any arrangements for security. So in Michelle's mind, she thinks this guy is like, he's trying to get away with something that nobody else gets to get away with. If you're drinking alcohol, you got to have deputies out here. So what do you do in that situation? The way Ms. McCraw tried to set it up is like, she changed these procedures. Remember, what she said before was, deputies would go straight out to the park and go, hey, money. And people at the park would be giving money over to these deputies. What she did was she just said, that might not be a good look. It might look like our deputies are shaking people down for money. So she made a procedure that trying to say, look, everybody call first. Susan, call these people. Have them come in beforehand. So all of it is settled beforehand. So that by the time the deputies get out there, they're not asking for money or there's not a misunderstanding. Wait, you owe me $300. No, you owe me $200. No, I thought it was $160. No, it's $260. Well, now her deputies are in an argument with a constituent or with a citizen at Rodriguez Park. So she has a complete different overhaul of the system. And now apparently they've gone back to deputies just taking money from people at the park. But there's nothing wrong with the fact that she's like, hey, let's have some structure in the sense that people are coming beforehand. So everybody is on the same page, they know what's going on. So Easter Sunday, she goes to Mr. Reyes and says, now remember, there's all these misunderstandings going on. Henry made a mistake. Mr. Reyes never called Susan Tristan. But she doesn't know he didn't call Susan Tristan. She thinks he did and just didn't tell Susan the truth about the party. So she's coming up going, hey, you got to pay security. Now she's in a situation where she's at the park. She can't say, come in next week and pay the security. She says, you got to pay it now. If you would have called Susan Tristan, or if you would have told her the truth, whatever it was, because she didn't know at the time. If that would have happened and that would have occurred, then you would have paid it the week before, just like the other party at Pavilion 2, who had no problems at all. And they had their security. So, all of this is like this, it's this snowball. She's basically standing at the bottom of a mountain, and these mistakes and these misunderstandings are starting to just roll and ball up. Now, he did pay the $300. She said, look, if that's what you got, that's what you got. We'll get a deputy out here. She's not happy because she thinks he didn't tell the truth. Now, I think the evidence is going to ultimately show that Mr. Reyes he didn't call, and he was instructed to. So whenever you make the reservation, you get a Parks Rules and Regulations. And it says you must call Susan Tristan at Precinct 2 to arrange for security. And what they will want to do is to make sure that Susan would listen. How many people you got? Are you drinking alcohol? Yes. Okay, you're going to need security. You're going to have this many deputies. It's going to cost this much. Come in and pay it. He had the reservation for a year. She said he's been doing it for 15 years. But he didn't ever pay attention to the Parks Rules and Regulations that are there when you reserve the pavilion. So Jesus Reyes whether intentionally or accidentally, broke the rules. Okay? I mean, that's the fact. He was not following the rules. They were drinking in the bar, no security. Michelle is trying to just make him follow the rules. And she doesn't necessarily know, and we're not saying, oh, it's this fault, this fault. There was a lot of mistakes and misunderstanding. But Mr. Reyes believed this constable in uniform just came and shook me down. She actually had to work security. And here's the other thing about Easter Sunday. Dawn mentioned she mentioned a little bit about that there was this program that was going on with Bexar County, right? It was a program that said, okay, for Easter Sunday, we'll pay the security. So we're going to be paying and everything else. Now, when they went to Precinct 2, Michelle said, fine, that's great. And they said, well, we're paying $35 an hour. And she said, our holiday rate is $50 an hour. And the reason why is because their deputies can't be with their families. They have to go and be with your family, or my family, or whoever's family's out there at Pavilion 1. So it's a $50 an hour holiday. She said, that's what we do. County said, no, we're going to pay $35. So it's like going into a Cadillac dealership and it says, hey, this car is $30,000, and you go, no, I'm going to give you $20 for it. They're going to go, no, you're not going to give me $80 for it. You're not getting the car. So she said, look, we're going to do it like we always did. And it's not just for her. It's not for the extra $20. She has deputies who depend on that as supplemental to their income. Now, these deputies, a lot of them you're going to hear from, and they're probably going to be upset with her for various things, and you're going to see the reasons why. They're going to testify the way that they testify. A lot of them are not going to know what's going on, but they think that because these people know what they're doing, or they think so, that something must be wrong. But remember, this track was all made and everything else, and it caught nothing. So now we're talking about some cash logs. So, Easter Sunday happens. That's what happened Easter Sunday. Mr. Reyes went to the media. And there was an article written April 30th. This is all April 21st. April 30th, there's an article written about her shaking down some guy at the park in uniform. None of that happened. And the evidence is going to show that that's not what happened. That he was breaking the rules that she made him follow. Once the article comes out, they start making their trap. Get her. Let's, as the DA's office, the prosecuting authority, get her. And so they call Brad, their friend Brad. Brad comes over and they start constructing. So, Susan Tristan, oral reprimand. Now this is important because Dawn talked about it a little bit. On June 3rd of 2019, Susan Tristan was reprimanded in, I know it's confusing, security logs, agreements, cash logs, all that other stuff. But the thing is we agree, Susan wasn't the person who kept Rodriguez Park things. Michelle came in one day, and near Susan's area, she saw these security agreements on the shred pile, like in the pile of things to be shredded. And she told Susan, you can't shred those. Susan said, we always did before. Now, it's not me saying it. You're going to hear on a recording that Susan said, it's either going to come out of her mouth, or you're going to hear the recording of her telling Ranger Freeman that actually did occur. That she did accidentally put things in the shred pile that shouldn't be there. And it wasn't, she didn't get fired. She just got told on June 3rd, you can't do that. Like that's just, it's an oral reprimand. Now, the DA sends her first subpoena 6/11/2019. So the first subpoena gets sent 8 days later. In that subpoena, well, let me show you the difference first before we talk about subpoena. So what's on the left is what would be, it's just kind of an example of a cash log. So a cash log has the date, it has the money, has the deputies. Who got the money, everything else. And that's basically what it's going to look like. This isn't the actual document, because we haven't started the evidence yet, but that's what it's going to look like. And Susan Tristan was responsible for keeping them. She's the one that made them. She had working copies that she would keep adding to as it went, and she kept them all together with her. Always. Now this isn't a security agreement. So the security agreement that Don was referencing, it would be something like this. It has the date, has the pavilion reserved, has the point of contact, type of event, number of guests, things like that. Okay? These are two totally different documents, right? And this is what's important. Because when you want to set a trap, when you're the DA's office and you're a bunch of lawyers and you want to start talking lawyer language and set a trap for a non-lawyer, it gets pretty easy when you start throwing a bunch of stuff around and they don't know what you're asking for. Now, we talked in opening statement, we said, hey, somebody could just say, no, I'm not going to provide it. I'll tell you right now, she didn't do that. She didn't say, I'm not going to provide it. They were trying to provide the things that they were being asked for. okay? But we're using it to make the point that not providing something to a DA's office is not tampering with evidence. That's just maybe a civil thing where the judge says, no, you need to provide it. Tampering involves you have to conceal it, you have to hide it, right? You have to create it, you have to do something to it. Not just say no, but that's not what she did. She's actually trying to provide it. So let's look at the subpoena. Please provide security agreement contract records and deputy work assignment and schedules related to the security contract records along with the business records affidavit for Rodriguez Park. Now, security assignments. Now, between those two, the thing on the right is what it sounds like that's asking for. Security agreement contract records. That's what it sounds like that is asking for. And that's what they are trying to get together. That's what they think that they want. And that's where their focus is. Now that's June 11th. There's not one word in that subpoena about cash logs. Now I'll give it to them. At the time, they didn't, I guess, know what it was called. They didn't know that there was a title on the top of the page saying cash log. But that's not going to remain true. Because the way that Dawn described it is, she went with Michelle and she was doing all of this stuff, and then Michelle said, you're in trouble, you're going to jail. That's not what happened. They got a subpoena 6/11. Susan calls Ranger Freeman on 6/12, the day after. Now, look back at the oral reprimand and look what the subpoena asked for. The oral reprimand was not for cash logs. It was for the security agreements, because that's what was found on the shred pile. And that's where she figured out that both Michael Villanueva and Susan Tristan had been shredding these security agreements. So, when that subpoena came in, and Susan knows that she'd been reprimanded for that, she freaked out. She got scared. One of the reasons we talked about, what are the motives that somebody would do? One of the motives is you think you're going to get in trouble. And Susan thought that she was going to be in trouble. She immediately called Ranger Freeman the next day. Don told you they were given weeks to respond to the subpoena. So before they even have an opportunity to respond or what they're going to do, Susan's already on the phone with Freeman. Day after that, she meets Freeman. 6/13/2019, she meets him and provides cash logs and receipt books to him at that time. So from 6/13 all the way to the end, and this is what I want you to follow throughout the trial, all the way to the end from 6/13, this table knew that that document was called cash logs. And not one subpoena did they ever send that actually asked for cash logs, even though they knew that that's what they were looking for. Because if you actually asked for it and you actually got it, where's the trap? You can't set it. You're not going to get anything. So what they continued to do was ask in lawyer language and legalese for things that they knew simply what that document was titled on June 13th and ever after. 6/18, Susan Tristan now meets the FBI in Freeman. This is 6/18. This is before even the deadline for when anybody has to respond to a subpoena. So it's not like it was like, oh my gosh, I'm meeting with you guys because we're supposed to respond to this thing. And we didn't do it. It hadn't even been time to respond to it yet. They're thinking that Susan is helping them look for these records and figure it out, because the whole trial, you will know, Susan always had control. These cash logs that they're talking about was always in Susan's control. Never left her control. Ever. Ever. Never went into her control. These cash logs were always with Susan Tristan. Never with Michelle. Ever. From the time that they start this thing to the time that they have this FBI raid with 27 FBI agents that go into Precinct 2. And guess what? 27 FBI agents go into Precinct 2. What do they get? Phones, computers, documents, everything. Why are we here? Some cash logs are saying wasn't provided. They set the trap. And then
I object. That violates the motion in limine. He's opened the door. Overruled.
It sets the trap. They set the trap. And in this courtroom right now, we're here for tampering with evidence. Cash logs, either concealing or making. That's it. That's why we're here. That's what this charge is. It is not stealing money. It is not misplacing money, misusing money that she was responsible for as constantly. Okay? She's meeting with the FBI. Then she meets with them the third time on the 19th. Freeman and the FBI. So Susan's meeting every time. Now this is important because as you go through this, you'll see that she either called or met with Freeman 6 times. Sometimes with the FBI and sometimes not. And Dawn said that Susan was sitting down and watching, and Michelle was working with her and taking stuff out. She never said that to anyone. She never said that to him. It's not in his reports, not in the audio that he inadvertently recorded. And we'll talk about that. Susan Tristan meets the FBI Freeman the fourth time and wears a wire on 6/25. This is still all before the subpoena is supposed to even be... the deadline for them responding to the subpoena hadn't even happened yet. And she's already wearing a wire. Now, why does somebody wear a wire? Remember, Susan's worked with these people for years. She's wearing a wire and talking to people at her work. It's not just Michelle. She's talking to everybody. They're talking about personal stuff, personal business, what kind of girls they like. And she was willing to do that and talk and let everybody hear all their personal business. For what? It's because she thought she was going to be in trouble. And so she starts running and doing all of these things. I got to here, look at this and do this. And I think she might be trying to, but she wasn't trying to. So Susan is creating this thing, and the snowball's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and she's still just down there at the bottom. All of these misunderstandings, all of these things, Susan running around wearing wires. On the wire, Don told you earlier, on the wire, nothing. Not one thing. They were prompting her Michelle to try to talk about it, prompting other people to talk about it. They didn't get nothing. She's wearing a wire for days at work, and intentionally being sent in, and they're doing little tricks and traps and things. Let's call, put them on speaker, let them know you're coming to talk to me to see if they'll say something. And then what did Dawn tell you? And she said nothing. She said nothing because she didn't do anything wrong. That's the exact time that you would expect her to say something. Fifth time, they're meeting 6/26. That's the original date that the subpoena had to be responded to. She's already wearing a wire twice. She's already providing all this other stuff. Cash logs and things that, if you look at that subpoena, when you see it, does not say cash logs on it. It says security agreements, right? So, sixth time, actually, the wears wire. I mean, she's wearing a wire 3 different times, right? Wire, wire, wire. Now, the DA's office sends a second subpoena on 7/18/2019. That subpoena says, any case reports, incident reports, investigative reports generated or provided to your office related to Rodriguez Park. All reported investigative assignments for deputies directed by Constable Michelle Barrientes Vela or any other self-initiated. Now, this is asking for, like, if they go out there and they're, like, making a police report. Like somebody's publicly intoxicated at the park. Somebody's, they're writing a report. They didn't say anything about cash logs. So that's the second subpoena. So now they're going, okay, we're trying to figure out how to respond to this one. And then July 24th. So this is the third time that Susan wears the wire. She meets Freeman. She gives more cash logs, but they're the same cash logs that she had given before because she has control of these documents. The only thing that's changing is the cash logs are starting to have more entries in it because Susan is still making entries on the documents when people are coming in. She wears the wire. Now, this is the most important date that you're going to have in this trial because they skipped over it, but this is what's important about it. On July 24th, 2019, Susan is wearing a wire. Freeman forgets that it's still running. He forgets that she has it on. He accidentally records his conversation with Susan. Susan tells him that Michelle told her to just tell the truth when she talks to Freeman. Susan tells Freeman, he goes, what did she say? When I called, when we set our trap and we wanted to get her to come in, what did she say? What did she say? She said, go in there and tell the truth. She said, do what's right. You will hear Michelle on the wire. While before she goes and talks to Freeman, you will hear Michelle's recorded voice saying, do what's right. And I'm not going to tell you what to say to him. Just do it, just go in there and do it. At the time, remember, Michelle is concerned for her as an employee because this snowball is going insane. So she says, look, if you want to talk to a lawyer, I don't know what they're investigating. They're apparently investigating everything, all of us. If you want to talk to a lawyer, that's fine. Or you can go talk to him. And she left work to go talk. I'm not going to tell you what to say. Just go talk to him, do what's right. Freeman says, what did she say? What did she say? She told me to tell the truth. Tom didn't tell you that in her opening statement. And that's the theme of this whole trial. Don didn't tell you that Michelle said, tell the truth, Susan. That's fine. Go talk to Freeman. Here's what's important about it, though. Freeman doesn't write any of this in his report about 7/24/2019. He doesn't write one word of it. Not one word. Remember we talked about, when an investigate, that's what happens when Dawn and Brad get together and they want to set a trap. All this evidence that she might not actually have anything to hide. She might be innocent. All they're doing is going, wait, why wouldn't she provide these? We don't really have. Why would you? I guess it has. They're creating everything that they possibly can. And that's the problem when you have a prosecution agency that's also the investigative agency. She's under the microscope with the people that have the power. Because normally, you'd have an investigative agency that says, look, we think that this is a crime. And the prosecutor is the last bastion, the last stop to say, no, you don't have enough evidence for that. But when it's the prosecutor's investigation themselves, when it's them that's doing the investigation, there's nobody to say no. There's nobody to stop the snowball coming down the mountain. So Freeman doesn't write any of this in his report. Why is this interesting? The only recorded statement we have of Susan is when he accidentally did it. When he didn't know he was doing it. He didn't record any other statement that she made to him. Not one. Not one. He just wrote in his report, this is what Susan said. He wrote in that report, this is what Susan said, and it wasn't. And we're going to prove it to you. We're going to prove that he left it out. And that's important. But why did he leave it out? It doesn't fit with their theory. It doesn't fit with their trap. So they left it out. The third subpoena. Now the third subpoena, this is what Dawn was referencing when she said, we tried to do more specificity.
Mr. Goss, 5 minutes.
If you'll just look at the subpoena itself, what you can see is that not anywhere here, it's got a lot of language. It says time, pavilion location, hours worked, compensation received. Now, that's not, the cash logs don't have time, it doesn't have pavilion location, it doesn't have hours worked. It does have compensation received, but that's like that's the word right before etc. And so you got this whole thing, it's again, security records, deputy police officers' assignments and schedules. This cash log was not an assignment. This was not what was given and said like you go to work at McDonald's and it says, look, you're going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 to 9, blah, blah, blah. That's not what that was. So they're thinking, okay, they want to get some schedule. And of course, Susan Freeman is the person who did that. There's not one word about cash logs. Now remember, by this subpoena, they have the documents already. They're sending subpoenas for stuff that they already have. Because they're setting a trap. That's what they're doing. They're just setting a trap. They already have these documents. Susan's already given them back in June. And they're just setting the trap. Susan meets Ranger Freeman 6 times, gives cash logs. The FBI searches Precinct 2 Constable's office. Michelle announces she's running for sheriff against Javier Salazar. The day the FBI raided, she said, I've had it. I'm running this sheriff. And she's had problems with the sheriff. And she announced that day. Because she announced, the resign to run thing kicked in, and so she had to resign her office as Precinct 2. Because she announced. But she's got the FBI raiding. The snowball has now come completely over her. Susan Tristan quits the office the next day. Now I want to talk about that raid real quick. When they do the raid, and when they find the cash logs, the evidence that they're going to say is the tampering. It is on Susan's desk. It's right on top of Susan's desk, in Susan's binder that she uses to work, to do Rodriguez's part. She's always had those in her possession the entire time. The person who ran immediately after the subpoena and is working behind the scenes and behind everybody's back had the cash logs the entire time. Michelle never had them. Never had possession of them. Always with Susan. Michelle's indicted for tampering with evidence on January 20th, 2020. And why is this important? They decided to indict her. She's not constable anymore. She's running against Javier Salazar. She's not constable. There's no threat to life or liberty. There's no major threat. The Bexar County Democratic primary for sheriff is March 3rd, 2020. They indicted her right there and completely tanked her for that election and completely helped Javier Salazar. That's what this case is about. It's about a prosecution that wanted to set a trap. They did their own investigation. They don't have anybody over there that can be objective about it. And they're just trying to get this woman. And all of these things that you're going to see, and all the witnesses, I'll tell you, if any witness says something, and we say, you didn't say that before. You never testified to that before. You never said it to anybody. If they agree to that, that means they're saying it for the first time right there. And you've got to question that as well. That's the cash logs. That's what we're here for. That's the security agreement, that's what they asked for. And that's what they got.